The willingness to, going back, was the willingness to give up the capital gains tax and the estate tax part of a response to members who would be worried about running on that with those?
You know, I think in terms of the tax policy changes that we made, I think it's really important to remember that, first of all, the biggest tax change we made was to return the 40% exclusion for small businesses or businesses in Vermont that sell in an effort to encourage them to grow. The House Ways and Means Committee invented that idea and that language and passed it in their tax bill. The only difference between what they passed and what we left town with was the exclusion for companies that had 10 principals or less. And we changed that because in discussing it, it didn't make a lot of sense. You know, and literally, I can remember sitting around the table in the speaker's office, and it was a bunch of people, and I turned to Bill Karras. I said, Senator, I said, when you sold Karras Reels, how many owners did you have? He said, just me. I said, how were your sales? He said, 100 million. He said, well, you know, I've got a little LLC on the southern end of Putney that bought up the land down there to keep it from getting turned into a strip mall 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I think we had 22 owners. And it wasn't really intended to make money. It might make 100 grand over the 10 or 20 years, but so why would Karras Reel get the 40% exclusion under the House version, and my little LLC might make 30 or 40 grand, and they won't? So it just, you know, we recognize that you have large companies that have few owners and small companies that have large owners. It just didn't make a lot of sense, particularly when you consider the fact that publicly traded companies are excluded. So IBM, GE Healthcare, they're not in the mix. So I think it was an evolution of a jobs creation method that we think will help grow jobs and encourage businesses to grow here. That's 90% of which was created by the democratically led House Ways and Means Committee in the House and passed by the Democratic House.
I mean, what I'd say about the cap gains changes is that it was the President Pro Tem is right. I mean, the concept started in the House. It was a carve out from what we had done last year. It was limited in scope. It retained much of the revenue that we had raised, both for 2011 and 2012. It was meant to put investments, make sure that investments in Vermont businesses were rewarded. And I think that it's healthy. We had done a carve out from the cap gains change that we had made in 2010 with regard to agriculture and timber sales. So it wasn't something that that was new to the tax policy that the House and Senate had engaged in. And with regard to the estate tax changes, we met the governor in the middle. He wanted 3.5 as an exemption. We had wanted 2, and the exemption's 2.75. So it's the classic compromise. It really was, and it doesn't actually impact any revenue in 2011. It's something that is felt in 2012. So.
But were there concerns by members worried about what, I mean, that they could be painted as obstructing, you know, a tax policy change? I'm trying to get a sense if that played in at all, or if it was just...
I didn't hear a lot of that. I think the concern in the legislature was, how do we ask the poorest of the poor to make sacrifices when they already have so little, and then find ways to repeal some of the provisions where we asked the wealthiest Vermonters to pay more during tough times. And the conclusion was that neither of the provisions that we passed would impact that basic principle, that in tough times, people who make a lot of money in Vermont should pay a little more.
So do you think you're still going to face the criticism that some of the tax changes that you did that are going to remain in place from what was passed last year will cause to more Vermonters changing their zip codes to those that, you know, match that of Florida or other, no, I mean, the governor's talked about this a lot. He even said repeatedly, even the last week before the session, that, you know, the one thing that was spoken at the jobs forum that you held earlier in the year was that those increases on the capital gains taxes, those are the things that were gonna force people of wealth to leave Vermont, and that they already have been, so.
You know, I was at a conference for the Vermont businesses, social responsibility this morning. What really impressed me was they have 1,200 members. It's a growing organization. They are bullish on Vermont, and I actually think that there's a reason to be bullish on Vermont. We live in a beautiful state. We're making investments in our physical infrastructure as well as our human infrastructure by making investments in our roads, bridges, telecommunications, and continuing to make investments in our schools. I think that in the long run, that's going to pay off for Vermont. When you look at what's happening in other states, they're taking the short-term view. They are failing to make the investments that are necessary, and in the long run, they will pay for that failure. I think that Vermont is making the right choices, and I think in the long run, it will pay off.
I also think, Shay, that they're gonna continue with that line. I actually sense that Vermonters are growing sick and tired of the doom and gloom message from the Dewey Douglas team. I know that, you know, as someone who's run a business in this state since I was 23, I know what a great place it is to do business, as the speaker just mentioned. Great quality of life, most loyal workforce in the country, a lifestyle we wouldn't trade for anything. And you know, I've never sold my product by telling people how terrible it is. I think Vermonters are getting a little tired of being told that their state is a terrible place to make a living. So I think we all have a lot to celebrate and to be optimistic about.